Hi, this is Arjun here, head of research and founder at InvestorKit Buyers Agency. And today's chat is with a dear friend and client, Cameron. And what we'll be going through today is just more about Cameron's journey with us, building his portfolio out over the last couple of years, what learnings he's got, tips he's got, and just the journey overall. So Cam, mate, thanks for joining me.
No, thank you, Arjun, and pleasure to be here.
Mate, I want to take it firstly just in terms of a bit of a reflection on a journey where over the last 2 years, you've picked up three places in quick succession. So I guess when I think of that, I always think of when it all started. And it didn't start at a pretty time considering the world was in a global pandemic, the lockdowns, and Zoom culture was very much alive and booming.
Yep.
What made you go, hey, you know what? World's completely upside down, but that's fine. I'm going to get started on this investing thing.
Yeah, so I've always been an optimist, and I thought if there's a crisis, there's probably an opportunity here. And so I always wanted to get into property, but it never had the time. And having spent a lot of time at home, obviously with the lockdowns and stuff, thought, why not look into it a little bit more? Was flicking around some properties in Brisbane and not really sure where to begin. And I just happened to come across an ad for you guys I think it was a investor magazine. So I gave you a call and we had a chat and the rest is history.
Yeah, and when you were thinking during those times, I mean, it might give some context around what you do for work as well, because you're very deep and heavy into numbers for what you do. And so I guess how does that tie in well with that sort of mindset around the numbers and getting into this from that numbers view rather than this fear of what's going on around the world?
Yeah, so just being in finance, I mean, the trick is to just remove emotion from it and just look at it purely on a numbers basis. I mean, obviously you got your asset classes and to just treat property as just another asset class, and remove any sort of, I guess, heart and look at it purely as a numbers thing is crucial. So I think every time you send me, I mean, I do look at the properties, but I'm more interested in the spreadsheet you send me and understanding the yields and capital growth that you're forecasting.
And when we first purchased the property, if we looked back at that city, the city was Adelaide, so spoiler
Okay.
given away. But with that first property that we purchased, having a look back, and this is something investors are guilty of. They look back, right? They go last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The picture wasn't that pretty, right? It was nothing special or jumping out in terms of saying Adelaide is this mega growth city. But you still felt, hey, I want to back this and I want to go for this. What made it very different for you instead of the typical consumer who might just go, oh, well, it's not really grown a lot?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because chatting to family members after we had that initial presentation of that property, they commented the same thing. Adelaide's, it's a dead city. It's no growth there, throwing away your money. And it was our chat about how you sort of arrive at your locations. So you broke it down so simply. You look at a number of metrics, and from there you decide that these are the up and comers. So you're looking at trends, and that to me made a lot of sense. And it's probably something that your average investor just doesn't have time to do. So I was comfortable. Your methodology made perfect sense to me the first time we had a chat. So I mean, it just removed a lot of the I guess uncertainty for me.
Was the methodology a big part of you feeling comfortable to go from 1 to 2 to 3 and follow the same process? Because sometimes when a methodology is not quite clear and you're just going for something because it sounds good or looks good, it can actually slow people's decisions to do it again because there's not a clear process around it. So how important was the process from a research perspective and a service perspective for you to feel comfortable to keep repeating?
Oh, crucial. If you can't explain it to your mum, you shouldn't be doing it. And I could explain that to my mum. That was no issue. So I mean, that was the big the big selling point for me. It was just so clear the way you spelled out exactly what you were looking for in each market, and you know, could take that and explain it in layperson's terms, so that someone like me who had looked at property but didn't really, when I looked, I was looking for yield. That was my thought process. If I can get yield, I can pay my P&I on my loan, and that's the end of the story. But to also factor in the capital growth as well, in your metrics, that was the key as well.
So on that first property, many people talk about the importance of it and how, it needs to be something that really supercharges the portfolio, does well, because if it don't, it could hold you back. Now, you've been a great saver the whole time. You've been great with the financial habits, putting your funds away. But how good did it feel knowing that you didn't really have to use that money that you were really good at putting away as heavily, because of the equity growth you saw from a property being in the 400s, now valued at close to 7 or low 7s now when you look at comparable sales? So how important was that to the journey in scaling a portfolio so quickly?
Well, yeah, it's crucial, because if you had done what I was intending to do and just focus on the yield, that capital growth, you've got to save that as your next deposit. Whereas I think for the second one, it was about, I only needed another, I think it was $30,000 or something. And then the third one, I didn't need anything. So I was able to use that money and just park in the offset and use it for other things. And it really, really does make all the difference.
Mate, I think one thing I've learned about just reflecting on your journey was a thing that I noticed around whether the properties got a door fallen off, a maintenance to do from day one. How do you put yourself in a mindset to go, look, all of these things can be improved or changed, and it's really the location that I'm buying in? Because, we've had 3 different properties, one super neat, one that needed a lot of negotiations at the start, the first one, to do this fix up and that fix up and this fix up. And then on the most recent one, a couple of things to negotiate, from discounting to try and get pest and building things approved, and we had to handle that works afterwards. What's been that part that you kind of reflect and go, hey, no, this has kept me on course and not been persuaded by these things that make me turn off about a property, because I know they can be changed? So what was kind of going through your mind when these sorts of things come up?
Yeah, I mean, things will happen. We're not going to get the perfect property in the perfect location at the perfect time every time. But I mean, just having a buffer and being prepared to put in a little bit extra money where necessary, it was perfectly understandable. And like you say, if you play the long game, put in the initial work, and then you basically just sit and wait. And it's, I call them, they're not really roadblocks. They're just, I mean, you guys make it so easy to deal with those sorts of things, that all I have to do is hit a button and send a little bit of money to, the carpenter or the roofer, and get it all rectified. It's really no time at all.
And maybe when you're on the journey to the next couple of properties, you then explored from Adelaide and we went out to Toowoomba. And in Toowoomba, this is now experiencing regional markets. Buyers, of course, including, I'm sure, family and friends, have an opinion on regional markets. And that opinion wasn't really correct based on the results you saw from the capital growth of the second. Can you go through the thinking that you personally had and maybe those around you had, and how really different it was to the actual result?
Yeah. Well, a good example is how the media always talks about the property market as a whole. And, it's just a headline. Really, what you showed me is, if you look at the different subsets of the market, it's a completely different story. And so Toowoomba, I think we talked through that one, and the level of government spending going into that area is just far in excess of what you get maybe at a major center. So for me, Toowoomba, I knew it. I knew people who lived there. I knew it to be a very nice part of the world. But I mean, again, your research and looking into that showed me that it was backed up by actual numbers that would support growth for many years to come.
Yeah. And so do you feel like when you had those, friends or family around you that maybe was still unsure about certain areas like regions and regionals, what do you find you hear out there as like some of the most common things that maybe they say versus what you experienced?
Oh, I mean, it goes back to that Adelaide one as well. People think that if you're not in Sydney or you're not in Melbourne, you're nowhere, basically. And I mean, people do live out there, believe it or not, and there are thriving communities that are a nice place to live. And so for me, again, it just comes back to the numbers, and you showed me that it all works, and whether that house is, it doesn't matter for me as an investor where it is. Happy to invest wherever, as long as it's supported by, what you're showing me.
And I think, what one of the problems is, it's the postcards, man. Everywhere there's a postcard, there's a Sydney Opera House on there. And
Yeah.
so I think everyone just thinks like from overseas, from local, from everything. It's just, oh, it's just Sydney.
Yep. No, it's exactly right. And yeah, it's amazing when you look into it, how many extra, areas of investment you can make. There's a whole subset of different markets, and they're all thriving, and yeah, makes sense from a property investor perspective.
One thing I've noticed as well, Cam, is that when you went from 1 to 2 to now 3, there wasn't this thought of like, is now a good time or not? It was always about you and capability and goal. Could you maybe explain more about where that thinking's come from, and also what keeps you on that framework of thinking? Because this is a very important point many investors actually make the mistake of.
Yeah, it's all about taking that long-term view. Markets will go up, markets will go down, markets will go sideways. But if you're investing somewhere with strong fundamentals, in the long term, you will more or less make money. So for me, it's just about being consistent and just setting some targets and just methodically moving towards that end goal. And yeah, just block out the noise and just keeping on, basically.
Yeah, I know. See, there's some really important points that you raise, and we actually did some research recently as well on a tight buying window versus the perfect buying. And you could hand two people the same amount of cash, the same locations, all the same properties. The variables are all the same. But what they're waiting for is this perfect world for person A of media, friends, word of mouth, spring and summer, the sun's shining, the banks are handing out dough left, right, and center. And they basically want to get a property in all the same variables as you did, but maybe year 1, oh wait, not so good, year 5, and then, oh wait, year 7. And then what happens is you've got person 2 who's, like you said, target, goal, research, methodology, process, just follow this framework and go, well, my capability is the same 5 as person A, I'm person B. My capability, let's just say the same locations as person A. If you do that in years 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, you've just got such a big compounding base that does the same thing over time, but now you just create some huge separation. I mean, that's such a good point you raise around that, like targets and this, because the world and the goals you want from your investing is not slowing down. Like it's not waiting for anyone. It's not going to say, hey, you know what? Like we'll definitely still give you the same passive income at 65 if you start at 45. Don't worry about it. Start when the times are right. That's not how the investing world
No,
works.
it's not how it works. Yep. Yep. No, it's exactly right. And it doesn't matter what asset class it is. It's the same story. You just got to be consistent and just work towards the goal. The world will never be a perfect place, but it's yeah, it's all about that roadmap and setting clear goals.
Now, no, Cam, we do a lot in at purchase time, and then we have follow-ups and catch-ups in between for bank valuations post-purchase each year. How important is the accountability partner together on this investing journey where there's a check-in afterwards, there's catch-ups afterwards, there's sharing news? I once remember you telling me about, hey, like Arjun, whenever you call me, I'm just noting like a call comes up, it's likely some really good news and you're keen to jump on the phone with me. Could you talk more about the accountability and post piece of having an investing relationship like we have?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crucial because I mean, it just puts my mind at ease and lets me know that everything's working as intended. And I often do say to you, I'd be all right if you called me up and said, look, things didn't go quite as we planned, but you haven't done that yet. And I think there's been a couple of instances where you called me and then called me a couple of weeks later and said, oh, sorry, actually it's bank valuation come in a little bit higher than what it was a couple of weeks ago. And it's good to know that you're only a phone call or a WhatsApp message away. If I have any questions about anything, having someone accessible like that is really, really, crucial.
Yeah, look, I enjoy it as well, man. And just from the opposite side of kind of going, we get to reflect and celebrate results and reflect and celebrate the journey that's going on and how we inch closer and closer. I guess from here, when you go across 1, 2, 3, are there any tips looking back for others that might be, say, considering a buyer's agent on their journey, considering InvestorKit to say, hey, look, how can you create the best working relationship with a team like us?
Yeah, I think it's just have your own clear goals and having someone like you guys just makes it so much easier. It's well worth the money to have someone who can give you that research and really focus you on a market. And I think, yeah, you guys make it so easy. I've recommended you to so many people because, I mean, like I say, you make it easy. It's just such a simple methodology that you employ, but it's so effective. And so I think, yeah, have your clear goals in mind, and then yeah, get some people on your side to help you out achieve those.
So building a team around you and really coming forward with that goal setting. So, mate, thanks, Cam, and well done on all your success from the 3 properties over the last 2 years and very quick succession. And what I'm so happy to see is that during this time, it's been a lot of equity usage to allow that scale, and you've really retained your buffers, your savings, your growth. And this to me is also what it's all about. Sometimes people just think about these aggressive journeys, super high growth, fast pace, but they don't realize that there's a lot of safety built into these plans that allow you to propel forward and somewhat feel invincible. So I think as a result of all of that, just want to say well done on all your results, mate, and thank you for trusting us.
Perfect. No, thank you, Arjun, and looking forward to number 4, 5, and 6.
There you go. Music to my ears.
Perfect.
Thanks, mate.